Taiwan's premier floats a workaround to make up for local government funding cuts. U.S. officials say Washington plans to ramp up arms sales to Taiwan. Plus, ahead of Dragon Boat Festival, a large-scale dragon boat racing event gets underway. A very warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao. Taiwan's central and local governments are at an impasse. The cabinet says that it's cutting funding for local governments, a move it insists it must make in the face of legislative budget cuts. Taiwan's premier has now floated a workaround to make up the funding, but it's not going over well with the opposition. A special budget. That's what Taiwan's cabinet is proposing to get around a 25% cut to central government subsidies to local governments. The cabinet is being forced to cut $2.1 billion from its budget this year. The opposition-held legislature stipulated the cuts in its 2025 general budget. Ruling Democratic Progressive Party officials say it had no choice but to cut local government subsidies in response.
当大院通过了三读预算的时候，我们第一时间就表达说会有窒碍难行之处，尤其这个636亿，因为过去没有这么大额的要自行删减。
The main opposition Kuomintang holds a majority of local government seats, and news of the cuts has gone over with local governments as well as one might expect.
针对所有对中央这样不法的行为、违法违宪的行为，我们要提出我们的抗议。
It's not just KMT local leaders who feel the pinch, though.
也当讲被耗不把赛，在这些南部的县市可以说是相对来讲比较严重。我觉得这样对高雄市民不公平。
Taiwan's premier Jung-tai is now floating a special $2.1 billion special budget to bridge the gap in local government funding.
如果行政提出一个针对636亿的追加预算，立法院能够同意，那就是一个解决的方法。
A special budget would fall outside of the country's general budget, meaning it would be a separate spending bill, not subject to the cabinet's cuts. Such a plan would require legislative approval, and the smaller opposition Taiwan People's Party, which holds the legislature in conjunction with the KMT, says it will not support such a plan.
竟然提出来说要用追加预算的这条路，老实讲是走不通的。回到政府来，好好去检讨到底有哪些的不当预算实施。
With the legislature firmly held by the opposition, any cabinet proposal needs to win the approval of policymakers from across the aisle. And it seems this time the opposition is telling the DPP to go back to the drawing board. Klein Wong and Liao for TaiwanPlus. China's foreign ministry says Beijing resolutely opposes U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. That's after officials in Washington told news agency Reuters of plans to ramp up arms sales to Taiwan, potentially surpassing U.S. President Donald Trump's first-term levels. Two officials say weapons sales to Taiwan under a second Trump administration could easily exceed the $18.3 billion approved during his first term. They're also urging Taiwan's opposition not to block defense budget hikes as the country aims to boost military spending to 3% of GDP. New arms packages are expected to focus on missiles, drones, and munitions meant to counter China's growing military pressure. U.S. President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs are back in effect after an appeals court halted a lower court decision freezing them. As Chris Gorn reports, the competing rulings could set the stage for a showdown at the Supreme Court.
Traders on the New York Stock Exchange ring the bell with high hopes after many of U.S. President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs were paused. The U.S. Court of International Trade on Wednesday ruled the tariffs were illegal under a national emergency authority. But by the afternoon, an appeals court had temporarily reinstated the levies. Administration officials say they're here to stay.
The tariffs remain in place. The court told us, they didn't all but tell us, they told us, go do it another way, so you can assume that even if we lose, we will do it another way. Though there's no plan B, it's plan A, okay?
Trump attacked the initial ruling online, calling for swift Supreme Court intervention. But the case has not yet made it that far, as the government waits for decisions from the lower courts.
It seems like the soonest would be about the second week of June. And then if everything goes against the government before the Court of International Trade, as well as before the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, then the government has the option of escalating one rung further and moving to the Supreme Court.
While the administration battles it out in courtrooms, damage resulting from the uncertainty can already be felt at the ports. The country's largest, in Los Angeles, says it expects import volume to be down by double digits this month compared to last year. Some lawyers say each new ruling on tariffs adds to the uncertainty.
Every time it goes through one set of decision makers, everyone with an interest here is sort of collectively holding their breath and wondering, okay, how are they going to come out? And also a bit, how fast are they going to make that decision?
But the administration says the tariffs are achieving their goals, pressuring nations into trade deals before a 90-day pause on the import taxes expires.
They are coming to us in good faith and trying to complete the deals before the 90-day pause ends. So we've seen no change in their attitude in the past 48 hours. As a matter of fact, I have a very large Japanese delegation coming to my office first thing tomorrow morning.
While the tariffs make their way through the courts, it's not a stretch to say that the whole world is waiting to see just how high up the fight will go. Devin Tsai and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun is not attending this year's Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, the first time China's top military official has missed the summit since 2019. Instead, a delegation from Beijing's National Defense University is being sent to the three-day annual security forum, which kicked off today. French President Emmanuel Macron and U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are among the world leaders attending the forum. Analysts expect they will discuss issues including the war in Ukraine, U.S. tariffs, and regional military tensions in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait. Vietnam has reportedly banned a print version of The Economist featuring the nation's leader To Lam on the cover. Media, including Bloomberg and Reuters, have said distributors are unable to obtain copies of the magazine. Vietnam is a one-party state that ranks 173rd out of 180 on Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index for its heavy censorship. For more on press freedom in Vietnam, TaiwanPlus reporter Chris Gorin spoke with Trin Huu Long, a Vietnamese journalist living in exile in Taiwan.
These days, you're running a nonprofit, the Legal Initiatives for Vietnam. Tell us about the work that you guys do.
We set up LIV in 2014 as a independent media organization, and what we do is to fight censorship in Vietnam. Given the fact that press freedom is non-existent in the country, we wanted to build an independent media movement, and not only independence, but also quality media, in order to convince the public and the government that independent journalism can be a good thing for society, can be a constructive contribution to the country, to the nation's building. So we run two digital magazines. One is Đột Phá in Vietnamese, and one is the Vietnamese magazine in English. So we're trying to target both people inside the country and international audience, trying to explain the legal and political affairs in the country in a very easy to understand way, so people can understand the complex of politics and legal affairs, and trying to build up their political awareness.
One of the co-founders of your website is the activist Pham Duan Trang, who's now serving a 9-year sentence in Vietnam. Before we get into how that came about, tell us a little bit about how you two first started working together.
She was a big name back then. She was such an inspiring journalist already because of her brave coverage of the China-Vietnam tension and her advocacy for LGBTQ rights and her brave voices in a lot of politically sensitive issues in Vietnam. So meeting someone, she can quickly sense that this person is suffering from something. And she has a way to get them to tell their stories. And she made it her life mission. She gave up everything for that. And she decided that she would do everything, be it independent newspaper or independent media, independent publishing houses, or blogging, or giving talks to foreign media. She would do everything. And because of that, in October 2020, she was arrested and charged with anti-state propaganda. And the evidence that the prosecutor presented in the documents is that one is some of the books that she wrote. The second, our magazine. The third is that some of the interviews that she gave for BBC Vietnamese, RFA Vietnamese, VOA Vietnamese. So those interviews are considered anti-state propaganda. And because of that, she was sentenced to 9 years of imprisonment.
So you mentioned that she's written some books that have been banned, and you actually keep a small collection of banned books here in the office, which you were kind enough to show us some of earlier. Let's take a quick look at that footage.
So this is also one of the most well-known banned books in the country, written by our co-founder, Pham Duan Tran, Politics for Dummies. And in this book, it's really very basic political knowledge for anyone in a normal democracy. It talks about separation of powers, independent judiciary, free and fair elections, how it works in a normal democracy. So, and this is printed in Vietnam illegally by an underground publisher.
This book sent her to prison.
Exactly. And the one who helped distribute this book in the country also went to jail. And he is now facing about 8 or 9 years imprisonment as well. So the authors and the distributors are all go to jail. This is a book also printed underground by one of the most influential bloggers. So his name is Anh Ba Sam. And then he is the son of the former Vietnamese ambassador to Soviet Union. And he used to be a police officer working for the security forces that protects the regime. But after he retired from the police, he became very popular by running his own blog and trying to deliver independent news to people. And 2014, he went to jail because of that. He served about 5 years in prison, and he was released in 2019. He's now still living in Vietnam. So because of him, a lot of people started to have to rethink about the government.
That was Trin Huu Long from Legal Initiatives for Vietnam. To watch the full episode, you can visit TaiwanPlus.com or go to our YouTube channel and search for Zoom In, Zoom Out. UK police have charged a man accused of driving a car into a crowd of football fans in Liverpool. 53-year-old local businessman Paul Doyle faces 7 offenses, including dangerous driving, malicious wounding, and intent to cause grievous bodily harm. 79 people were injured when a car rammed into a parade celebrating Liverpool FC's Premier League victory. 7 of those people are still hospitalized. Doyle is due to appear in court Friday morning local time. Entire towns in Western Canada are being forced to flee as wildfires tear through the area, displacing more than 20,000 people. Social media footage shows dramatic scenes of Manitoba shrouded in smoke with an orange hue covering the sky. The province's government has declared a state of emergency as 14 fires burn across the region. Those are among 100 active blazes nationwide. Reports are calling it one of the worst starts to Canada's wildfire season in history. Coming up after the break, Taiwan marks 80 years since the single deadliest bombing raid on Taipei during World War II.
So today I'm going to show you, so you'll say 一份. Taiwan is so-called the fruit paradise. Culture of Taiwanese hot pot.
今晚学宁夏夜市。你好，可以说什么？我要一份凤梨虾粥饭汤烧饼。好，谢谢。
Nice, you got it.
Yes.
And have you tried the milk tea? So have you ever taken MRT here in Taiwan?
I have, yes.
If you want me to pick one thing to recommend it to foreigners, I'll definitely pick hot pot.
Mandarin on the go. Every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from Peru and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Taiwan is marking 80 years since U.S. warplanes tore through the skies of Taipei, carrying out the single deadliest bombing raid against the city of World War II. Here's Bryn Thomas with the story.
80 years ago, in the closing months of World War II, Zhang Jingzhao, then aged 15, was about to experience one of life's great milestones, her final day of school. But it isn't classmates or diplomas she remembers most vividly.
畢業迄句哦，當咧空襲，迄空襲伊會對遐來呼叫，直直來偷啊來，攏無甲你當，攏無甲你迄啥，干安尼來，干安尼咱就驚甲心肝骨就砰砰菜啊。
The May 31st, 1945 air raid on Taipei was the worst to hit Taiwan during the war. The island, then a colony of the Japanese Empire, was a key strategic hub in Japan's war effort.
Japan had occupied Formosa, Korea, and part of China.
Taiwan plays a fundamental role in both trade, and due to its kind of maritime crossroads as one approaches Southeast Asia, of course, and it also plays an important military hub as the war expands from the late 1930s, but then really with the Pacific War in the early 1940s, because the majority of many ships will travel through that area.
The Allied air forces began bombing Taiwan in earnest in 1943, but early raids were sporadic, mostly carried out by smaller carrier-based planes with light payloads targeting industrial areas. Zhang Jingzhao could see and hear them from as far away as Xindian in what is now New Taipei.
They were hitting hard all over the map, all around the clock.
That 飛行機來空襲阮的，頭仔來是呼阮的，互恁大家走啊未分大驚呢，尾仔來毋是哦，迄炸彈，安尼帶咱這邊線，安尼照過這邊。
Lin Wenming was in Wanli in what is now New Taipei when it was attacked as part of U.S. bombings targeting the key port of nearby Geelong.
我跟我妈，那个做那个汽油车啊，火车啊，那时候也是汽油车嘛，都是站光复啊，在万里，在那高架里面，跟美国的飞机来轰炸。 4台就在轰炸，那时候我也很小，里面就死了好多人。
In May 1945, with Germany defeated, the U.S. turned its full might towards the Empire of Japan. On the final day of May, 117 heavier B-24 bombers left the recently liberated Philippines bound for Taipei, where they met almost no resistance.
一擺3隻，一隻做頭前，啊兩隻做較坡道邊遐安尼，啊都3隻各一堆，3隻各一堆，規個天頂吼，安尼攏對迄角飛來，啊飛對安尼入去，也安尼呼呼叫哦，規個天啊強要夾起來，呼呼叫迄安尼，啊3台一堆，3台一堆，3台一堆。 差不多早時10點，都來啊。
The bombings continued until about 1 in the afternoon, killing an estimated 3,000 people in just 3 hours. Around 3,000 bombs ravaged Taipei's central government district. Strategic sites like Taipei Main Station were hit, along with landmarks such as parks, what is now the presidential office, and Longshan Temple. The bombings brought the city to a standstill, driving home the fact that by May of 1945, the tide of war had turned firmly against the Japanese Empire.
Taiwan certainly felt the effects of the war. There was significant Allied bombing at various points in the war on Taipei and other cities, which essentially were considered to be under Japanese occupation, or at least part of the Japanese Empire.
Sources differ, but around 5,000 civilians in Taiwan were killed in air raids during World War II, most of them on May 31st. 80 years later, the raid is only vaguely remembered, suppressed by Cold War narratives and overshadowed by far deadlier attacks elsewhere around the same time. Zhang Jinsao still lives in Xindian in a small home surrounded by her children and grandchildren. Lin Wenming spent his life painting before retiring to Hualien. Their lives have spanned empires, republics, and generations, but the bombing of Taipei is something that they'll never forget. Ryan Wu, Ed Moon, Jeffrey Chen, and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
The sentence has been increased for a construction contractor convicted over a deadly 2021 train crash in eastern Taiwan. During his first trial in November 2022, Li Yixiang was found guilty of manslaughter and bid rigging and sentenced to nearly 8 years in prison. The latest ruling adds a hit-and-run charge to his conviction, bringing his sentence to 12.5 years. Li had been operating a crane truck next to Taiwan's eastern rail line in April 2021 when he lost control of the vehicle. It fell onto the nearby tracks and was hit by an oncoming Taroko express train, derailing it. The crash killed 49 people and injured 200 others, making it the deadliest railway accident in Taiwan's history. Ahead of the Dragon Boat Festival on Saturday, hundreds of teams are participating in a large-scale dragon boat racing event in Taipei, part of the holiday festivities across the country. Cadence Quaranto reports.
Here at one of Taipei's scenic riverside parks, an important centuries-old tradition is underway. The dragon boat races going on behind me are just part of the festivities that are going on all across Taiwan ahead of tomorrow's Dragon Boat Festival, an important holiday not just here in Taiwan, but in a lot of countries across Asia. The festival commemorates the life of Qu Yuan, a Chinese poet and politician who, legend has it, drowned himself in a river during China's Warring States period thousands of years ago, when his state was surrendered to its rivals. There are several explanations of what came next, but one is that after his death, villagers paddled along the river to try to find his body and threw rice dumplings into the water to prevent fish from eating him, which some say is where dragon boat racing comes from. Today, the sport involves teams of paddlers in narrow boats racing various distances, and a drummer helping to keep them on pace. Happening here is an international event with over 200 teams taking part. The races will take place all day Friday and will continue throughout the weekend, with finals set for Sunday. Some teams here are organized by businesses or universities. Others are formal dragon boat racing clubs. This team is made up of employees of a company that sells kitchen appliances. They've been coming to race here for 4 years, and their general manager says dragon boat racing is good for team building.
我们一辈子大概很少有机会可以划龙舟，这对每个人是一个记录，也是一个纪念。那第二个是说，我们平常很多没有在一起工作的同事，可以借由这一艘船，让我们坐在船上，大家一起努力。
Others have come for the same reason, saying it's a good way for people to come together. This team was last year's winner in the small boat division and have confidence that they will do well this year, too.
我们其实准备很久了，我们今年的目标是冠军啊，我们觉得我们一定会。
And it's not just Taiwanese here. This team came from Okinawa, close to a U.S. military base. Many of its members are part of the U.S. military, Navy, or are contractors.
We have a dragon boat team in Okinawa, Japan, and we race locally there a lot. So when we heard about the big international race here, we wanted to, travel and see how it works here, because we are in Japan. It's a little bit different. It's Sabanis, wooden boats. So the boats here are very different than what we're used to paddling in.
Those who have come out to watch the races say they just want to take in the competitiveness and fun of it all.
因为儿子说他想要去看划龙舟，他在上幼儿园的时候，老师说，周末如果有空的话，你们可以去看划龙舟哦，对不对？
其实我每年都会来，我自己本身是选手，只是刚好这几年没有划龙舟，然后帮自己的队加油这样子，很兴奋啊，就觉得说，就是还想要帮忙一起比赛。
The Dragon Boat Festival is also something of an unofficial start to Taiwan's summer months. And with a lot of people off work today and good weather, events like these are drawing big and enthusiastic crowds. Eason Chen and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
And thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we leave you with more highlights of the International Dragon Boat Festival in Taiwan. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.